So what do you think about Bitcoin as a solution to these problems?
Well, the effort to make sure your Bitcoin provider isn't going to lose your money and your understanding of the volatility of Bitcoin, I'd hardly say that's ready for poor people to have it go up and down by a factor of 2 and oops, I was at Mount Gox, now that's not good, now I'm at bit whatever. So that basic technology shows that digital can do these things very cheaply, and the fees that have been built up over time won't stand up even for small transactions. Now, making sure that the thing is fraud resistant and money can be refunded, there's somebody you call up if you think you transferred to the wrong account or your account to balance is not what you expect. And so I'm not thinking that the poor should get out there on the cutting edge. Also, governments for most transactions will want attribution. That is the idea of a system where you can't see, is that drug money? Is it terrorist money? Should that be taxed? You're going to have some tension between the attributed systems like credit card, debit card systems, where there's actually a record of who's engaging, and the purely anonymous ones. But the one I see us getting to critical mass, along with the government regulatory support we need, is one where it's attributed, where we can see who actually did this transaction.
Some of what you just described, the need to move money from place to place, the cost of doing so, the overhead, as you put it, makes me think, believe it or not, of Bitcoin, because some people have said, hey, Bitcoin is the answer to those problems. Are you a believer?
Well, Bitcoin is exciting because it shows how cheap it can be. Bitcoin is better than currency in that you don't have to be physically in the same place. And of course, for large transactions, currency can get pretty inconvenient. The customers we're talking about aren't trying to be anonymous. They're willing to be known. So the Bitcoin technology is key, and you could add to it, or you could build a similar technology where there's enough attribution that people feel comfortable. This has nothing to do with terrorism or any type of money laundering.
What kinds of people or private enterprises right now are helping to solve the same problems you're interested in?
Well, in some countries, the mobile companies have been fantastic. In a few other companies, it's been the banks. In some countries, it's a startup company that's neither a bank nor a mobile company. In Bangladesh, the bKash offering runs across any phone, and they've gotten the regulation so that they have a product that we think will get very, very pervasive. So entrepreneurs are there. The enablement this creates, if you want to put in, say, electricity in a city, collecting your bills is one of the reasons why the underspending of infrastructure in these areas is a real thing holding back the economy.
You mentioned banks. Are the legacy institutions, for the most part, banks, credit card companies, payment processors, friend or foe?
Many of them want to have these additional customers, but they have to embrace the idea that the fees are going to be a lot lower. And so they have to find a way to service these new customers. Now, that means these customers aren't going to be coming into their branches, and they can charge a higher fee when you want to actually cash out. But if it's a pure digital transaction, then you should be paying less than 1% to move that money from you to a merchant or from you to a friend, even with meeting all the regulatory requirements.
Don't you expect them to stand in your way to protect their margins?
Well, it's a competitive field, and governments have a real interest in seeing this happen. Governments often want to make payments to the poorest, and if they can identify them and get that money out to them efficiently, countries like Mexico and Brazil have shown that's a way to lift people up. So the government, if they understand this, will usually want to create a competitive framework that draws people in to this. I think the capitalistic framework, with a little help from the government, will work well.
The profit motive will take over.
Yes, although banks are going to have to change their business model. The profits they'll be seeking will be different than the profit sources they get today.
What about the risks? Security on the one hand, and the potential for abuses like we saw in subprime. on the other hand?
Yeah, the whole financial market, you can have deposits that get lost, you can have money stolen, you can have misrepresentation. All those things have to be thought through in this new model. Now, when it's tiny bits of money that are moving around, and it's more of a savings-oriented approach, the room for abuse is much lower there. But honesty, making sure that the people who really hold these deposits are able to stand behind them. Some of those basic requirements will still be necessary.